Another week, another Teo update, but still no signing. What is going on with Teoscar Hernandez? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about an almost trade that the Dodgers made involving Gavin Lux and a little bit more. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. This is a daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. You can make that easier by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live like we are here on Sunday night. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. I'm Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snyder. And we've been doing this Locked On Dodgers podcast going into our 7th season now. We have been doing a Dodger podcast longer than that. And Jeff and I have been covering the team in a few different ways over the last 10 years. So a lot of Dodger coverage, a lot of Dodger knowledge, and a lot of Dodger fandom. And we are here to talk about the Dodgers once again because it is December. And, what else do you want to talk about right now? There's nothing else going on, really, I guess. So why not talk about the Dodgers? And there was a few trades this weekend involving players we've talked about. We'll get into one of them a little bit more in the next segment. Devin Williams got traded to the Yankees, and Kyle Tucker got traded to the Cubs. So if you wanted those guys on the Dodgers, not going to happen at the moment. I guess it could still happen at the trade deadline if any of those other teams are out of it. But either way, let's start with Teoscar Hernandez. Seems like we get an update every week. The Dodgers are close. The Dodgers are talking. There's a gap. There's, blah, blah, blah. There's other teams interested. Dave Roberts was at an event, got interviewed by the Dodgers beat guys, or Dodgers beat woman, Miss Alicia, and he said that it's close with Teoscar Hernandez. So should we take this one at face value?
Yeah, here's the full quote of what he said. He said, "We're going to run it back. LA is a city of champions, and that's something that I certainly appreciate. We want rings." Mookie said it. Shohei said it. They want to accumulate rings and build onto their legacy. So yes, that's what we want to do. We're going to run it back. Teoscar, I love Teo, and so I think we're close. I pray everyone say your prayers that we get Teo done so he can come back in Dodger blue as well. And obviously the manager isn't the one doing the negotiating, but I assume Dave Roberts is kept abreast on what's going on. And I've kind of felt all along like Teoscar's going to be back. He's going to test out free agency. He's going to make sure that he's getting as much as he can from the Dodgers. But in the end, Teoscar found out how much fun it is to win. And the Dodgers aren't going to lowball him. They're going to pay him a lot of money. He's going to make more money on this contract than he's made so far in his career. And whether that, I think he'll probably take a little bit, a little bit less, come back to the Dodgers. And I think I expected it this weekend. I'm a little surprised that we're sitting here on Sunday evening and it hasn't happened yet. But I wasn't surprised to hear Dave Roberts say he thinks it's close, because I think it's close too.
Yeah, now we can take everything at face value. And, what Teo said, what the Dodgers have said, everything has been, for all the rumors and everything else, it really hasn't been rumors per se. It was, Dodger personnel saying different things. It was, Freeman and Gomes and now Dave Roberts and, everything else we've heard. We haven't really heard Teo linked to too many other teams recently. We haven't heard anything. And I think that is what makes it feel like they're just kind of negotiating with the Dodgers right now and trying to figure things out and hammer out the details. You would imagine, he's one of the biggest free agents left available on the market, especially when it comes to hitting. And, you would think we might hear a little bit more, especially with the teams that missed out on Soto and everything else, and, trades going down and all that type of stuff. So we shall see. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Teo in general of, do the Dodgers, need him? How does he fit in and everything else? And, he's a fit in more than one way, and especially for the Dodgers right now, because you want to go with guys that are a little bit more proven. If you don't sign Teoscar Hernandez, there's other guys out there that you can sign. Anthony Santander might be the closest to matching his offensive production, but not that great defensively. There was a report that he's looking for a 5-year deal, so the Dodgers probably aren't looking to give that out right now to a guy that is essentially a DH that can play the outfield. Hopefully this is all just leading to the signing. I know it's December 15th. Christmas is 10 days away, so I don't know if I want them to wait that long, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll take an early Christmas present. EB in the chat says Dave Roberts is always talking out of his backside. I won't put the comment up on the screen because there's a potty word in it, but I think that's wrong. I think Dave Roberts often deliberately and for a reason will say things that, basically to protect his players. So yeah, I don't take everything Dave Roberts says as gospel, but I can't remember a time we've ever heard Dave Roberts comment on a free agent like this and openly campaign for him and say that it's close. I think this is there's no reason. Every time Dave Roberts lies to the media or doesn't tell the whole truth to the media, it's for a reason. And there would be no reason for him to be saying this if it wasn't true, at least as far as he understands it, and I have no reason to think that he wouldn't be, like I said, kept up to date on at least the basics of the negotiations. And
if anything, he wouldn't be saying this if it wasn't going to happen, because I don't know the tampering rules specifically, but you're not really supposed to talk about like free agents like this, right? Or is it just front office people?
I think once they're actually a free agent, you can say whatever you want. Well, my voice is getting worse as this episode goes on, but I think since he's a free agent right now, they can say whatever they want. It's, pending free agents that they can't talk about.
That makes sense. Yeah. So again, we've heard different iterations of the similar report. We're just waiting and seeing and hoping that Teoscar is signed. But before we get into the next segment, I mentioned Kyle Tucker got traded to the Cubs. Similar to this and similar to the Devin Williams deal. If you're sitting there and saying, "Oh, the Dodgers could have beat that deal," you're absolutely right. The Dodgers could be probably any deal out there in general, unless it was an extreme overpay. But with the Astros trade specifically, it seemed like they were trying to retool rather than rebuild, and the Dodgers just don't have major league ready players other than a few pitchers available to trade. And you weren't gonna trade. Trading Isaac Paredes is not the same as trading Max Muncy, but in a similar vein, a starting caliber infielder, corner infielder. The Dodgers weren't gonna make that trade. So if the Astros wanted major league ready players or guys that can help out in 2025, the Dodgers don't really have that, and that might be one major reason why the Dodgers weren't in it. And we don't even know if the Dodgers were in it. We just kind of talked about it because, hey, the Dodgers have a hole in right field. Kyle Tucker plays right field.
Yeah, Tucker would have been a guy I would have loved to have had, but when you're talking about the draft, teams draft the best player available and worry about positions later. Talking about a trade, you are looking to fill needs, and I just it's hard to see how the Dodgers would match up with an Astros. Looking at what the Astros got from the Cubs, like you said, the Dodgers don't have anything that matches up like that. Even if they could have beat it on quality, it wouldn't have been the right match.
Yeah. So, and we will now talk about Devin Williams and that trade and who the Dodgers may have included trying to get him to come to LA. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Take on all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And if you are someone that likes to watch games and you see what the trends are going on in the game, and then, hey, maybe I think this is going to happen. Well, the FanDuel Sportsbook app is there to give you that, because it helps you place those live bets on the NFL in the same place that you place your normal bets. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out all the stats, view the live play-by-play, see if your hunch is actually backed up by the numbers, and you can place those live bets there on the same page. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today. Remember, place $5 bet. That $5 bet hits, you get $150 in bonus bets. I've been advocating for people to continue to bet on the Raiders to lose. They play Monday Night Football against the Falcons. I truly believe that the Raiders are going to lose again, but it's maybe not as set in stone as weeks pass. So Bijan Robinson is the running back for the Falcons. He's going to score a touchdown for sure. So put $5 on that maybe, and that might get you the 150 in bonus bets. But you can do it all at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode is also brought to you by Select Quote. The World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future because Select Quote has licensed insurance agents that are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. Check out Select Quote. They're one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. You invest so much time to take care of yourself and be the best version of yourself. Select Quote has exclusive policies that can reward that effort. And if you're in good health, they work with carriers that could get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million with no medical exam required. Head to selectquote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. That's selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. Want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers one of the listens of your day, whether it's first listen, last listen, third listen, whatever listen. You know, we appreciate the first listeners of the day. If you are someone that, you know, listens to start your day, we appreciate you. If you're live right here on Sunday, and we might not be your first listen, but if it's Sunday, we might be. Either way, if you're listening to Locked On Dodgers, we appreciate you. And remember, you can also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. All right. So, Jeff, Devin Williams got traded to the Yankees for Nestor Cortez and Caleb Durbin, who was infield prospect, not a crazy high prospect, but a prospect nonetheless. And again, you were probably thinking as a Dodger fan, the Dodgers could have easily beat that deal. And yeah, they probably could have, but it just comes down to value. Could the Dodgers have traded, a young pitcher, of the names we've mentioned before, and they probably could have matched what Nestor Cortez is going to give the Cubs in 2025, maybe. But then those guys would still have multiple years of of team control beyond that, and Nestor Cortez doesn't. So either way, it didn't seem to match up for whatever reason. But there was a report that the Dodgers did offer Gavin Lux, or the name was thrown around in a potential deal for Devin Williams. This was an idea kicked around a few times already. We've talked about it specifically, but does anything change your mind about the Dodgers 2025 plans when we know that Gavin Lux is getting shopped a little bit?
I don't think so. I do think it's interesting that, and maybe we ought to put no in quotation marks, because really we've just heard one rumor from one person, and, no disrespect to that person. But Shohei Ohtani didn't sign with the Blue Jays. That person has not always been totally spot on with this stuff. To say they're shopping him might be different than to say that they were willing to include him in a trade for one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. I do wonder if they had traded him, what their plan would have been for the infield. Do you just shift Mookie back to second base and plan on Rojas and Edman playing shortstop, or leave Mookie at short, plan on Rojas and Edman playing second base, but then who plays center field? All those things, I think would have been interesting if they had traded him. But I don't know when I'm going to stop believing this, but I think Gavin Lux is going to be good in 2025. I think he hit pretty well. Really well. He had a 899 OPS after the All-Star break last year. It wasn't totally consistent, smooth sailing, but nobody is totally consistent. You look at everybody's season numbers, and there's ups and downs for everybody. And he played a solid defensive second base. So I think they're perfectly content to go into the season with Gavin Lux as their everyday second baseman. But I do think it's interesting that they are willing to trade him in the right deal, and whether that means that they're just perfectly happy with the options they have, or like you and I have talked about in the past, like if they have their eye on somebody, potentially some other shortstop who we're not really even thinking about in a trade or something, saying like, I don't know. We've thrown around Dansby Swanson's name. Now that the Cubs traded for Kyle Tucker, like who knows what the Cubs are doing with anything ever. They're just like competing and not competing at the same time. So maybe that one's not realistic, but if the Dodgers had traded for Devin Williams and Gavin Lux had been included, I do think it would have been fascinating to see what the next move was to shore up the infield. But like I said last week, I also think it's weird that the only team that ever gets mentioned when people talk about they should trade Gavin Lux is the Brewers. And it's just because Lux is from Wisconsin. And I can't help thinking that there's some of that here that, well, of course they might have wanted Gavin Lux because he's from Wisconsin. Like no team ever worried except the Braves because they know they can sign him to a $10 extension if they grew up a Braves fan. Other than that, no team ever thinks about what team the guy rooted for growing up when they're making a trade.
Yeah, I think the Brewers are a team that are always looking to retool rather than rebuild. And, last year with Corbin Burns and now this year with Devin Williams, I think, hey, an infielder that can be in the majors for you right now makes sense for a team that, kind of operates that way. So I think that probably plays a part in it. If you look at other guys that got traded, like the White Sox, like what, they traded for Vargas last year, but what are they going to do with Gavin Lux realistically? Like 2 more years left, for in different deals like that. So I think that plays a part of it. But yeah, it is kind of weird that it is the Brewers. But, I've never been fully on board, Lux like you have. And, I even said a couple weeks ago or last week, whenever it was, that I just don't think you can only make so many excuses for a guy. And, I could be wrong and he could be an all-star, the rest of his career. But even with all the excuses you make, his best time is still not insane type player. Like, oh my God, we need this guy on the team. It's like, oh yeah, that guy was really good in the role that he played. And that's something the Dodgers do need, like guys to play the roles that they're in. They don't need 1 through 9 all-stars, 1 through 9 guys that, have an OPS of 130. Like they don't need OPS plus of 130. They don't need all that, but they can use it. And I just think they're open to any and all explorations of how to make the team better. And if they can find a way to improve the team in a different position, like I feel at the very least, if you trade Gavin Lux for a pitcher, let's say, then you have, you can play Edman and Mookie at the middle infield. And then you can play, Andy Pages and Outman to start the year in center. And it could be a lot worse. There's teams with worse center field, platoons out there, but it always feels like if that's a move they make, then there's another move behind it to kind of justify it, or they're just they're gonna trust young guys to either 1, bounce back, 2, to remain the same, and 3, to improve their defense.
Yeah, it could be a lot worse, I guess, but it could be a lot better than Pages and Outman in center, like a dude with a 900 OPS playing second base. Like, yeah, I don't even think of it like making excuses for Lux. I think it's the fact is, when he's been healthy, he's been really good. And
he's been good. I don't know about really good.
2019,
I feel like was overblown.
Well, I'm talking 2022.
And then 3 months.
2022 until he had the neck injury. He was hitting like Trey Turner. And then Trey Turner went out and got himself $1 billion. I think Gavin Lux, if he's healthy, I expect him to be, somewhere between 850 and 900 OPS and playing good defense at second base. I think that's ridiculously valuable for a second baseman, especially a guy batting ninth, probably.
Yeah. We shall see. But again, it's always but or this or that. And we haven't seen them fully healthy for a season. So maybe that's just the case. And, we might get to see that. We might not. We don't know. I see David Bote's name and getting mentioned a lot in the chat. I don't know why the hype is about him. I didn't even know he was still in the league, to be honest. and he hasn't really been. He's played a handful of games. So I don't know if he's been hurt or what, but yeah, I don't expect that to be much more than anything than depth.
Yeah, the Dodgers signed David Bodie to a minor league contract, and minor leagues is where he'll play, and unless Max Muncy gets hurt and they need him up briefly. But yeah, David Bodie is one of those guys. Now we can say we've said his name on the podcast, so he's officially a Dodger. But beyond that, yeah, he's it's not. I don't know. Minor league deals aren't the deals that I get excited about because those guys hardly ever play a role. And the fact is, Max Muncy was a minor league deal, and he did play a role. But I haven't heard of David Bodie totally revamping his swing or anything. I think he's just a decent hitter who will be a good third baseman at Oklahoma City and may get an at bat or two. But he's the kind of guy who, if he plays for the Dodgers this year, it's going to be because they don't want to call up somebody else who's not on the 40-man roster who they don't want to DFA right after. So Bodie will be one of those, call him up, let him play for a week while somebody's hurt, and then DFA him to get him off the 40-man roster kind of guys.
Yeah. So, all right. Freddie, we talked about a baseball getting sold last week. Another baseball got sold. Freddie Freeman's walk-off grand slam. We'll talk about how much that was and maybe a little bit more about that. And then Corbin Burns, still unsigned. Should the Dodgers be in consideration for, or should they consider signing him? We'll talk about that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. And that means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. And it's the perfect gift. Holidays are coming up. You want to get someone a gift. Why not get them tickets to a comedy show or a theater show, or I guess the musical is what they play at the theater, or another sporting event. I don't know if Dodger tickets are on there yet, but if they are, you can get them Dodger tickets as well. And you can do it all with the Game Time app. Find an event in the app, and you can do a lot of different things like Game Time picks, which makes getting tickets for live events even easier because it filters out all the fluff and only gives you the incredible deals. They have all in pricing, so you don't have to worry about getting surprise fees at the end of your transaction. You can get views from the seat to see what's going to look like before you buy. They have the lowest price guarantees, so you don't have to worry about finding cheaper tickets later on. It's all there with the Game Time app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets and download the Game Time app. And if you create an account and use the code LOCKEDONMLB, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. And make sure to go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. So that's where you can get text directly from us updating you on any Dodgers news. If you were part of Locked On Dodgers Insiders text, you got text when the Devin Williams trade went down and the Kyle Tucker trade went down. Not necessarily Dodger related, but Dodger adjacent if you were someone that wanted one of those guys on the team. So join subtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. All right, Jeff, the Freddie Freeman baseball, which is a baseball you mentioned you would want to have in your collection. I don't know if you had an extra $1.5 million laying around, but that's what it would have cost you to get that ball in your collection.
Hey, how do you know I'm not the one who bought it?
No, I don't. That's what I said. I don't know if you do.
Yep, I do. That's how much this podcast pays.
Yeah.
So you and me got in a bidding war, and I beat you out. You only offered $1.4 million, and beat you out for it. Yeah, that's a great piece of Dodger history. And have you gone a day without watching that Grand Slam since it happened?
I couldn't even if I wanted. Like if I try, like I would literally have to just be in bed and not be on my phone at all.
Yeah, it shows up, but every time it shows up, I watch. It shows up on my Instagram reels. I watch it at least 2 or 3 times on that one, and then I scroll, and 5 minutes later, it's there again, and watch it another couple times, and then later, my wife laughed at me again yesterday. I just sat down and turned on the MLB app on my Apple TV, and I watched the game recaps from Game 1 and Game 5 of the World Series. Like, you know what? It's December. This is my Dodger baseball right now, and yeah, I cannot get enough of that Grand Slam. Everything about it is perfect, and I think it's cool that they talked about a kid ended up with the ball. His dad ended up with the ball, but I mean, that kid's college is paid for now, if nothing else. And, $1.5 million isn't going to set a 10-year-old for life, but there's definitely worse things, and cool for him to get to be a part of history and make some money on it.
Yeah. It seems to have all gone well and worked out. And, that's not always the case when it comes to stuff like this. So that's cool. Let's move on. Corbin Burns, still not signed. There's really only two teams kind of linked to him strongly, which is the Blue Jays and the Giants. Hasn't really been any traction lately. The Orioles, for whatever reason, don't seem to want to spend money, even though they have new ownership and have a team that, needs starting pitching to try to get them over that hump of winning a game in the postseason. But the Dodgers, they signed Blake Snell already. They've signed 2 Boris clients this offseason. So why not a third one, right?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, there's plenty of reasons why not. Who knows how much, Corbin Burns is 30 years old now, and we've seen the Dodgers in the past shy away from paying pitchers specifically deep into their 30s. And so, if Corbin Burns is looking for an ultra long deal, Dodgers probably aren't going to be in it. But for me, like, when I think about, seeing that the Giants are the favorites to sign him, like, okay, well, I don't necessarily love, even the Dodgers have had decent success against Burns at times, but he's still a very good pitcher. And teaming up with Logan Webb in that Giants rotation, that would be pretty good. And I'm never in favor of anything that makes the Giants better. I'm at least in favor of the Dodgers being involved on Burns, if for no other reason than to make Buster Posey pay more for him. Because unlike the Dodgers, the Giants do probably have a limit on how much they're willing to pay. And so, at least drive up that price so that they can't afford to do other things or, something like that.
Yeah, I think, again, if it's one of those where for whatever reason it gets to a point where, hey, Corbin Burns is open to taking a 5-year deal or even a shorter deal than that, then yeah, the Dodgers would for sure be interested. It's not that, they couldn't use another, like, imagine you sign Corbin Burns and you have, Burns and Yamamoto and Glasnow and Snell and Otani. Like, that's a ridiculous rotation. We've talked about the Dodgers and the money, and at this point, money is money. But it's one of those where I don't think they're not in on it. I think they're, definitely have made a call. Definitely have, I would imagine the Dodgers and Boris is kind of like, Freeman saying, hey, our offer is 5 years, $200 million. If you want that, go ahead. If not, you don't have to call us back. So we'll see what ends up happening. It's one of those where at this point, if it is the Blue Jays or the Giants, even though the Giants are in the Dodgers division, I don't think it makes them any closer to contention, really, or at least contending with the Dodgers, maybe contending for a wild card spot. And yeah, if you get into a postseason series, Burns and Logan Webb would be a decent 1-2 punch. But, again, ultimately, I don't think it matters. And it's almost one of those where I'm not completely sold on Burns either, just based on some of the underlying numbers that have kind of regressed the last couple of years. He's still really good, and I would take him on the Dodgers for sure, because at the end of the day, it would just be money. And if he's not good after 2 years and the Dodgers find a way to get out of the contract or just DFA him, it doesn't affect us personally. So, but if it's one of those where, yeah, go to the Giants and just, live in that void of non-postseason contention for the next few years.
Yeah, what I don't understand, Corbin Burns' strikeout rate was way down. It's gone down the last couple of years, and like last year's 8.4 strikeouts per 9, the actual strikeout percentage was down to 23.1%. It's been as high as 36.7% in his career, down to 23.1%. And yet, when you look at his StatCast numbers, like his fastball velocity is still 91st percentile. Let me see what it was in like 2020 when he was, his fastball is faster than it was in 2020 when he had his career high strikeout rate. So it's like, why is the strikeout rate going down? because he still looks like he's good at everything. And that's something that, a lot of times when a guy's strikeout rate goes down, it's because the velocity is dipping. And if a guy's velocity is dipping already when he's 30, you definitely don't want to be paying him when he's 37. The velocity hasn't gone anywhere. And so it's like, well, maybe he can bounce back. Maybe it's more of a usage thing or something. But the fact is, for a 30-year-old, I mean, he's only thrown 900 innings in his career, just because he, wasn't great. He was a reliever for a while and then not very good for a while. And so he didn't become this workhorse guy till he was 26 years old. And so maybe there's miles left on that arm. I think I'm at the point where if the Dodgers sign Burns to any contract 6 years or less, I would be pretty thrilled by it, because I do think he would make them better for sure in 2025 and 2026. And that's as far as I really want to think about it right now, because I want the Dodgers to repeat and three-peat, and, we can worry about the 7-peat, as the years go on. Like you said, it's not our money, but I wonder how much the Dodgers and other teams that are interested in him, how much insight they have into why his strikeouts are down.
Yeah, it could be as simple as, pitch selection, pitch whatever. The Brewers are a team that's kind of known to get the most out of pitchers, or to, get pitchers better or fix them, or whatever the case is. Orioles don't really have that reputation at the moment. Grayson Rodriguez has been good for them, one of the guys that came up through their system, but it's not necessarily it's not known yet for somewhere where you go to get better. And it could be as simple as that. They just have a different way of pitching, being in the AL East, maybe that played a part in it. But again, it even went down a little bit when he was in the Central the year before. So you never really know. But at the end of the day, it's one of those where, anything 5 years or less, sure, Dodgers sign them. Anything more than that, it's not necessarily a matter of – it's hard for us when we talk about, money doesn't matter and everything else. And then we say, well, if it's 8 years and, maybe not. Well, it's not necessarily about the money. It's just a little bit more about the principle in that respect of, that you don't want to be tied to dead money. You want to spend, if you want to spend $50 million on a player and he's playing well, then yeah, who cares? If you want to spend $50 million on a player that is either not playing or is, you're paying him to sit on his couch at home, then yeah, that's just dead money that, it doesn't hurt you in a way if you're the Dodgers, because it's just money, but it also can hold you back a little bit if it's the owners are like, all right, I know we got a limited money, but let's not get crazy.
Yeah, and the fact is, even the Dodgers aren't going to DFA a guy with 5 years and $150 million left on his contract, if for no other reason than that it's hard to know, is this guy actually bad now or is he slumping? And it takes a couple of years to figure out, this guy's bad. And then, so there's definitely perils to getting locked into a long-term contract with a guy who may not age well. But yeah, I might be willing to risk those.
Yeah, again, it would appear, I don't know, things have slowed down in terms of like certain players. Obviously, we had 2 big trades this weekend, and there's been other, rumblings. Cody Bellinger to the Yankees has been a rumbling, different things like that. But it will be interesting to see if things pick up before the holidays, or if we're just going to wait because the holidays were after, or till after the holidays. So.
Yeah.
But either way, we'll be here talking Dodgers, talking different things, talking new ideas. So if you have any new ideas for somebody the Dodgers should be interested in, or somebody we haven't talked about, I know there's still some names we probably didn't get to talk about or haven't talked about that will get talked about. But, if you have a fresh idea, we're more than willing to talk about it. If your fresh idea is as good as Jim Bowden's, and we've talked about his ideas before. So,
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, you got anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, last listen of the day, any listen of the day. We appreciate you if you listen at all. You can go beyond the podcast, come Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You get text directly from us, keeping you up to date on the Dodgers. If you're not on social media all day, or you have somewhere to be, you can also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.